The culprit behind Steam's recent complete and absolute capitulation to payment processors and the subsequent deletion of possibly hundreds of adult titles has now probably been revealed as Collective Shout, an old-school sex-negative feminist organization that is earning quite the pretty old little penny by fighting against violence against women. And since these are, of course, feminist supremacists indeed, who only employ women on their $6.4 million revenue team, define violence as pornography. All pornography. Pornography does not only depict violence against women, it is violence against women and girls, they say in a petition to the United Nations. So, we've got to kind of roll back the clock here a little bit. This is, of course, talking about what happened on Steam the other day, where they launched a massive crackdown against adult titles, including adding in this nice little pearl here to their terms of service. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular certain kinds of adult-only content, is now in violation of Steam's terms of service. This is it isn't merely a surrender to a payment provider's terms of service as is right now. It is a complete and utter capitulation. It is in essence an adaptation of any payment processor's terms of service, of any bank's terms of service, of any internet network provider's terms of service for the immediate future and for all future. This is catastrophic for adult games on Steam, as companies like these, they don't stop with the cancellation of one game, or one genre, or one thing that they think is objectionable. Again, these are old-school feminist activists. They consider all pornography, full stop, to be violence. And the moment you give them so much as a pinky finger, they will never ever stop, because this is big goddamn business. So, they started with attacking the game called No Mercy on Steam a few months ago. They successfully managed to get it removed from Steam, and they then immediately, of course, move on to try to remove everything else, because in their view, any form of pornography is an insult against women, and they are not willing to tolerate anything like that whatsoever. These are J.K. Rowling-style feminists that believe themselves to be sacrosanct and above any and all consequences, of course. So, this is a part of a much wider campaign that's been going on for a very, very long time, for years and years and years and years and years, with various organizations having made various attempts to ban adult entertainment on Steam and everywhere else, all the way from 2018, 16, 14, and beyond. Hell, you can even go back to conservative movements to get Grand Theft Auto banned from Walmart because you were able to bang prostitutes in that game. One of the recent big victories, of course, is feminists in Sweden enforcing a ban on OnlyFans content for Swedish people, mind you. You can still take pictures of your vagina and asshole and sell it to everyone else, just not to Swedish people, of course. Now, this is, of course, a threat is what they're doing here. That is the tactic that they are using. They are creating an open letter to the payment processor, bringing up Steam specifically, and accusing them of profiting of rape, of incest, and of child abuse. Again, we need to go back to old school feminism to understand this, where these are shaming cancel culture attempts, where they can't actually bring up an argument of ethics or logic or morality in specific because they want to ban all of it. This is a threat. Simple as. They are going, hey there, Visa, MasterCard, whatever, we are an organization that sends letters to the United Nations. We are an organization that are willing to lie and morally browbeat you and use pretty much any word necessary to make you look bad in public. We earn a lot of money of doing this. As I wish to reiterate again and again, this sort of activism is big goddamn business. 6.4 million revenue for 10 employees. These women are absolutely earning bank off the back of this. And so, they will write things like this. It is hard to believe that any reputable corporation would desire to profit from the sales of products featuring rape, incest, and the abuse of children, which is the example of the various games banned, being largely, in this case, incest, BDSM, stuff like that. So, first and foremost, this is in no way, shape, or form violence against women unless, again, you use the feminist definition of anything that even mildly insults me, annoys me, or that I find objectionable in the slightest, because these are all 3D models. There are no actual women being hurt here. Nobody's having incestual sex. And I also want to point out, child abuse. Steam has, in essence, a zero-tolerance policy against anything that even resembles children, something that Japanese hentai games have experienced. Indeed, the popular gacha game Blue Archive, which is released on Steam, received a temporary hold on their release because of the suspicion that it might be viewed as pornographic. So I very, very much so doubt that any of these include any child abuse material, even against polygons or .jpegs. But we have discovered 7 who are quite happy to take a cut from hundreds of rape, incest, and child abuse themed games which we found on popular gaming platforms such as Steam and itch.io. And while we did get one vile rape and incest game, No Mercy, down from these platforms, unfortunately there are many more like it, because this is not a problem we wish to solve, which is why we're throwing our definition so wildly, because then, if we fixed it, the gravy train would unfortunately end. Our research has shown that many of these games would breach Australian classification laws. Most of the content found within the games, including the graphics and developers' descriptions, are too distressing for us to include on our website. Yet, despite that, one of their web team members have done extensive research using her Steam account, and the content found includes violent sexual torture of women and children, including family members. I highly recommend, by the way, if you find this content to truly be all that objectionable, to search this team member's computer for a folder named something like, other or nondescript, probably with a password placed upon it, because, I'm just saying, more often than not, the people who are outraged the most by this have vast Steam libraries. It is time to make credit card companies and payment gateways like PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard see that profiting from first-player gamified violence against women and children isn't good for their reputation, and there of course comes the threat. They know that this isn't actually illegal. They go, would probably breach some sort of country's classifications against something. No. They don't care. They don't give a shit. This is a moral threat, a moral browbeating. They are saying, hey there, payment provider, we are a multi-million-dollar company who wish to launch a smear campaign against your company unless you do as we demand for you to do. We can show that we have effectively threatened corporations to do what we want them to in the past, and that, well, that gave us a taste of blood in our mouths, and we are now coming to threaten you, Mr. Person, which is why we have created an open mailing letter with the ability for easily people to spam your inbox about this. We are going to tell you that we are reacting to violence against women. We are going to tell you that we are reacting against abuse of children, because we are willing to lie about this, and because we want you to understand that we will talk to other people. We will talk to your customers, to normies, and we will not tell them anything about the context of any of this, and we will simply try to convince as many human beings as possible that you, Visa, are benefiting and earning money of child abuse. And we don't care about any reality that might be associated to these accusations. So, we've put some points you can make here. Rape in this game. Reinforce male sexual entitlement to women and children's bodies. Bullshit. Put women and girls at risk. Bullshit. Fuel attitudes that perpetuate real crimes of violence against women? Bullshit. Destroy empathy? Bullshit. None of this has any evidence whatsoever. None of this has any basis in reality, whether observable or otherwise. It's all just threats and made up nonsense. This is, again, 2014 feminism. They've got a blanket email with a link you can click right here and send immediately or build your own, which is in tiny letters because, well, if you make your own, you might add in some sort of context or lack the adequately morally damning language that we require. We don't want that. We'd prefer it if you use ours, which is why we have this giant link right here. And of course, with images to Steam, benefiting with the list of the payment processors. Right. I've talked about previously the danger of the rise of things like conservative Christians, for example, which used to be one of the leading forces in various boycott and banning movements against adult entertainment. Which, here's the thing, I did a whole video on this. Pornography is the thing that gets attacked most easily by left and right because it is the most difficult to defend. It is rare for a person to be willing to stand up and go, no, listen, I want freedom of expression. I want freedom for people to make and enjoy whatever the fuck they want. And that means I am also willing to stand up in the defense of things I personally don't like. I did a recent video on that on the Queens of Spades Stellar Blade skin, where I simply say, okay, this isn't my cup of tea, but I understand that as a principle, if I allow or champion for this to be banned, I open the door for crazy people to come in. Because here's the thing. You may easily make the argument, okay, but this thing is degenerate, this thing is immoral, and I might even agree with you. But then somebody else will come in and go, well, you have now ceded the moral ground, you have ceded the principle, I am simply going to make my demand. And my demand is a fuckload more extreme than yours. Now, tragically as well, these are organizations that have a great deal of political power because the payment processes so far have been beyond the scope of the consequences of cancel culture or the anti-woke backlash, because nobody's really targeted them. The payment processors are one of the near exclusive targets of these types of activists, because they understand that they can really browbeat them morally, and it is very difficult for us to really attack them in return, because we're not attacking them over a specific product. We can't really cancel them by not using their services, because the only way to quote-unquote cancel PayPal, Visa, or MasterCard over this is to cancel Steam. And they don't care. They've already threatened Steam into compliance. And since they've basically got a monopoly on the entirety of the payment market and electronic currency, yeah. This is one of those situations in which the only real way to affect them is to attempt to launch a counter-moral argument. But again, that would require an organized movement in favor of porn, in favor even of pornographic games where you have women beating the living shit out of one another, etc., and that just isn't going to gain much in the way of public traction, honestly, as the kind of moralizing language being used here has a demonstrable and proven long-term effect. These were the people who were winning the culture war until the feminist movement was basically eradicated by the progressivist movements, the trans-exclusionary movement. So, I can damn near guarantee you, all of these people are TERFs, trans-exclusionary feminists, because they are female supremacists. They want themselves to be granted a great deal of advantages and societal power, including deciding what you can and cannot enjoy. It doesn't get much more old school than that. They were largely defeated by the TERFs, but the TERFs, they were largely defeated by the progressives, but the progressives have now been largely defeated by us, which will almost guaranteeably see a resurgence in this sort of activism. Largely because, again, it is so beyond profitable. It is so crazily, insanely profitable to do this. This was largely the initial impetus for the feminist grift within gaming, with individuals like Anita Sarkeesian, for example. The amount of money that activists can earn off this is just mind-boggling. And this is long after the cultural relevance of their movement started to fade, as this was started in 2009 as well. This has been going for a very, very long time. However, the problem is that once the progressives are being slowly but surely pushed back and replaced by these, well, they have very different tactics again. They have very different strategies, and they are targeting things like adult games specifically because they are unlikely to be defended particularly vociferously by 98% of people. The danger is, of course, in the escalation and the inevitable nature of it. Again, started 2018 and beyond. It will simply continue. First, it's lollies, and people go, well, you know, I don't really like lollies, so I'll allow that. Then it becomes incest, is the case right now, or BDSM, or whatever else, with the eventual goal being to ban all of it. Black and white, they are stating it openly. All pornographic content, all. And once, if they presumably manage to wipe it out, and I want to point out as well, this is already sequestered into its own part of the internet. You need to actively look for this stuff to even know that it exists, but that doesn't matter. It's a power play rather than anything actually logical, moral, or natural, decent. Which means that even if they do manage to achieve their objective, even if they manage to sanitize Steam, even if they manage to sanitize the internet, they will simply move on to another thing, because that is the entire point of all of it. So, I heartily encourage anyone who gives a shit about freedom of speech to actively resist this, to yell at Steam, as little good as it will do, to yell at the payment processors. This will, in all due likelihood, be the next big fight we'll have to deal with, and I'll be honest with you, I don't even really know where to start with this one, but hey. At least it's nice to know that we're not going to be finished even with the progressives, huh? The wheel turns ever onwards. Anyways, Steam, stop it. Idiots, payment processors, bigger, censorious idiots, cease. And to the female supremacists, you were eaten by your own political allies. Do you really want to start this all over again? Well, I suppose I have my answer. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.